Anna was a successful architect. Her life was a perfect construction of goals and deadlines. She collected accolades, award-winning projects, and a flawless smile for the world. She seemed to have everything under control, but deep down, her heart was a city with open doors, where the noise and pressure of the world entered and left without asking permission, leaving a subtle exhaustion. She lived a full life, but felt emptier every day. The constant rush left no time for silence, for introspection, or for the simple and necessary task of closing the door. One Tuesday, the illusory peace of her routine was shattered. She opened her email inbox to check a report, but an unexpected title made her pause. "What have you become, Anna?" The email was from her sister, whom she hadn't spoken to in years. The words were harsh, accusing her of having traded her family for success, of having become a stranger. Each sentence was an arrow that pierced deep, for Anna knew in the silence of her soul that there was a kernel of truth in it. The pain was sharp, but it didn't come from outside. It came from within, from a vulnerable heart that didn't know how to defend itself. That night, Anna didn't go to an important event. She didn't answer her phone or respond to any messages. She simply sat on the floor of her living room, her body tired and her heart heavy. The apartment, once a temple of minimalism and success, felt cold and empty. The city lights twinkled outside, but she felt invisible, disconnected from everything. Her sister's email had exposed a truth she'd striven to hide. It didn't matter how much she built on the outside if the inner foundation was crumbling. It was then, in the silence, that something different happened. In the midst of her pain, she heard a soft voice, not the sound of words, but a deep, comforting thought. "Above all else, guard your heart, for your whole life depends on it." The phrase seemed to come from a place of infinite peace. As she closed her eyes, she felt a presence, a non-invasive presence, yet infinitely welcoming. It was her guardian angel, who had always been there, waiting for her to allow herself to stop so that God's voice could finally be heard. Her sister's email didn't make her cry, it woke her up. For the first time in years, Anna decided to take care of herself. She started with small actions. She didn't scroll for hours after waking up, and instead she sat on the porch to feel the sun on her skin. The noise of the outside world was still there, but for the first time, she didn't open the door to it. She looked out at the cityscape, noticing the beauty she herself had helped build, but had never stopped to admire. A soft, almost imperceptible glow seemed to envelop her, the presence of her guardian angel encouraging her. The change, however, did not come without challenges. Her previously fast-paced life resisted slowing down. Her boss called, demanding a weekend job. The old Anna would have said yes immediately, driven by the need to prove her worth. But now, something in her heart made her hesitate. A soft but firm voice seemed to echo within her. "Keep it, keep it." It was the voice of God, manifesting itself through the strength her angel granted her. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and with her hand on her chest said for the first time, "No." That night was difficult. The silence she so desperately sought now seemed to amplify the voices of doubt. What if I lose my job? What if people think I'm weak? The voices of fear and anxiety, which an unguarded heart used to welcome, now knocked at her door. But Anna didn't let them in. She remembered the phrase from that day and the peace that accompanied it. Instead of fighting, she surrendered herself to trusting in God. She lit a candle and felt the stillness, the opposite of the chaos she was used to. It was then that she felt the first drops of a new life. Not the perfect life she had planned, but a real life, with ups and downs, but with a solid foundation. She felt light. The burden of approval and perfection she had carried for years had dissolved. God was guiding her onto a new path, a path of truth and freedom. And her angel, who had once been just a presence, now seemed to have a more defined form of pure light and grace. Before her, with her heart more protected, Anna felt the need to repair the most important door in her life, her relationship with her sister. Instead of a reactive and painful response, she wrote a different email. It wasn't an apology, but a confession. She admitted she'd lost herself in the rush, that she'd traded time for status. The words flowed with a sincerity she hadn't felt in years. For the first time, she wasn't afraid to be vulnerable. Her guardian angel guided her, and with each word she typed, she felt healing. The reunion took place at the park they had frequented as children. Her sister arrived hesitantly, but the new expression of peace on Anna's face surprised her. The conversation was not easy. Tears flowed from both of them, not of pain, but of relief. It was a release from years of misunderstanding. In the end, her sister hugged her and whispered, "Welcome back." At that moment, Anna knew that guarding her heart wasn't about closing it off to the world, but about opening it to the right people and protecting it with God's truth and love. The presence of her angel hovered over them, blessing their reconciliation. With her heart guarded and her wounds healed, Anna returned to work, but in a completely new way. She stopped accepting every project and began choosing those that challenged her creatively and had a greater purpose. She turned down a project with a client that stressed her, even with peer pressure. She felt a peace that money couldn't buy. She was no longer defined by her work, but by her purpose. And her new compass was her guarded heart, which was no longer driven by opinions, but by her faith. Anna finally understood the profound meaning of Proverbs 4:23. Life doesn't flow from what we build, but from who we are. Guarding the heart is a daily journey of prayer, silence, and trust in God. It's not about building walls, but about opening the door only to what is good, what nourishes the soul. It's about letting go of fear and surrendering to divine love, which is true protection. And on this journey, she knew she would never be alone, for her angel was always present, lighting the way with every step. Anna's heart became a garden, and her actions, the flowers. She revised her projects and donated time to a social cause, the revitalization of an old orphanage in the city. The place, once cold and grey, began to transform with her new vision. She moved through the place with a new peace, hearing the children's voices, seeing the beauty in every peeling wall. For the first time, she wasn't building something to be praised, but to serve. She felt she was, in fact, overflowing, watering the lives of others with the water that was now in her own soul. Anna's transformation did not go unnoticed. A younger colleague, struggling with the same cycle of anxiety and perfectionism she had faced, reached out to her. The young woman was exhausted. Instead of offering technical advice, Anna simply listened. She shared her journey, the pain of her sister's email, the peace of her prayer, and the power of guarding one's heart. She spoke about God, about the angels, about the truth of Proverbs. At the end, the young colleague cried, not out of sadness, but out of relief, knowing she was not alone in her struggle. The orphanage project became her greatest work. She no longer cared about what critics would say, but about the children's smiles. With each restored window, each painted wall, she felt she was healing herself and at the same time, healing the world. The phrase, "Your whole life depends on him," resonated in her soul like a melody. She didn't need applause. Life was already God's applause. Happiness was not a destiny, but the consequence of a soul at peace. Anna was no longer the architect who only built buildings. She was the woman who, by guarding her heart, became a source of life. The water that flowed from her was not that of a turbulent river, but that of a pure and crystal-clear spring, capable of nourishing everything around her. The grace she received, she offered to others, and she knew with unshakable certainty that this spring would never run dry, because it was fed by God's love and guarded forever by the company of her angel. Anna's story, which began with a painful email, was now being told to thousands. On a stage, in front of an attentive audience, she spoke about Proverbs 4:23. Her words were not about architecture, but about the true foundation of life, the heart. She spoke of peace, purpose, and how God, in his infinite wisdom, closes some doors to guide us to a place of freedom. As she spoke, a faint glow seemed to emanate from her chest, a light that comforted all who listened. At the end of the talk, a woman approached Anna, tears in her eyes. "You told my story," she said. "I too was living in chaos with my heart exposed. Your words reminded me of God and gave me the courage to begin guarding my heart." Anna embraced the woman, and they both felt the peace that only sharing faith can bring. This was true success, the result of a life that flows from a guarded heart. It was the richest harvest she could ever have. Back on her balcony, sitting in her chair, Anna watched the sunrise. The city was still the same, but now for her, it was a place of beauty, not anxiety. She hadn't stopped working, but she worked with purpose. She no longer sought the validation of the world, but the presence of God. She discovered that the heart is the true compass of life. When it is guarded, every step is right, every decision is clear, and every day is a blessing. And this is the truth of Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. Guarding your heart is the greatest journey of all. It is opening the door to God's presence and closing it to what is not useful. It is the choice that transforms us into channels of light, life, and grace. And at the end of the journey, the reward is the peace that surpasses all understanding, a treasure that no force can steal, guarded by God's love and the companionship of His angels. May this story be the first step in your own transformation. Subscribe to the channel and allow the light of God and His angels to guide you to your true life.